Hello and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that's caught our eye this week. I'm CarsGuide Deputy Editor James, and with me is Senior Journalist Richard.
Oh, good morning. Good afternoon.
And regular contributor Chesto.
Howdy world.
This week, we're looking at the best new SUVs heading for Australia in 2021. We'll check in on some fresh metal in the CarsGuide garage, and we'll also deal with possibly the world's most reflective and caring billionaire in this week's MuskWatch. So stay with us. But first, some feedback. And last week's main topic of conversation was the prospect of a GR version of the Toyota Hilux. And we got a fair bit of feedback, which was great. Thank you. Peter Crott says, Toyota's smart. If the other manufacturers don't watch out, they'll be at 30% market share soon. These GR versions open up the brand to people like him that until now had been thinking of Toyota as white good on wheels. And he also says, look, all their new models actually have styling as well. So that's starting to wash through, that people are saying Toyotas look good, and now there's some dynamic models that they can have. So he sees it as a logical extension of Toyota's offering, which I think is pretty right.
Couldn't agree more. For years, all Toyota had was bulletproof reliability. Now they've still got that reliability, but they're adding things like style and the way they drive and performance. So yeah, they're going to be if they're not already, an even bigger powerhouse.
At a price though, Chesto. At a price. So
at a price.
How much is Yaris retailing for now?
Well, nobody knows. That's the great mystery. It was 39, now it's 45. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow? It's like a Tesla share.
All right, now Marco Vess says GR Hilux is all well and good, but he's waiting for the GR Hi-Ace, which would be quite an interesting bit. And Richard, we'll get to your iMax N drift bus experience in a minute, but he thinks, and then DeCook came in and said, DeCook, Richard,
DeCook
thinks GRMN Hi-Ace would be dope. Imagine being added to this Hall of Fame, and he gives a link off to another site that listed the best minivans in all the world. I think it's Donut Media, and it's quite fun. And one of the ones they called out is called the Brubaker Box. Now, this is a vehicle I had no idea existed.
No, me neither.
YouTube will be able to see an image of it and some footage of the site. From 1972 to 1979, it was fiberglass, based on the VW Type 1 chassis, and it is extraordinary. So people on YouTube, click on that link that DeCook has put into our comments from last week's show. It's amazing. But Richard,
yes,
you 8 Richard Berries actually drove the Hyundai iMax N drift bus, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. It was going to be an April Fool's Day joke, but the Hyundai Australia didn't quite have it ready in time. So what they were going to do, Hyundai in Germany came up with this ComGen, like a computer-generated image of an iMax, people mover that had been slammed and had been end. So it had been painted the blue, and it had end wheels, and it had end aero kit and everything like that. Well, Hyundai Australia took it one step further, and they didn't tell Hyundai's anywhere else in the world. They didn't even tell head office in Korea. And they went ahead and actually made this van come true. So they took a 6-cylinder engine out of a Genesis somewhere in the world. They brought it in, put different transmission. They used end parts. They upholstered all the seats with end fabric and end leather material. They put aero all over it. They did a fantastic job of it. And then they gave it to journalists to drive around a racetrack. So
it's pretty good.
I can't believe we still live in a time where this happens. And it was a diabolical machine. The video is up there. It's hilarious. Yeah. When it came to do the video, I was like, we've got to get 8 people in it. And then I thought, if we can do 8 Richard Berries, and we've got a video editor who's able to do that type of, technical magic.
There weren't actually 8 Richard Berries?
No, there's only the other 7 were killed when they escaped from the laboratory.
Do you mind if I make a small request moving forward? Can we ban the term 8 Richard's Berries from the podcast? It's conjuring some terrible images.
Chesto, I sensed that you might have found a picture of the Brubaker box.
Yes. Not only did I find a picture of it, I'm going to send this exact one through so we can have it up on the podcast. You can see it. Tell me this is not where Musk got the Cybertruck inspiration from. It's like a covered Cybertruck.
I actually love it. I think it looks really amazing, and it's a huge cult car.
Awesome.
It was designed particularly for California as a surf box. You know, you put your board in there and you can sleep in it and all that stuff. So yeah, it's huge fun.
Awesome.
Look, Neza, our old mate Neza, also said, you know, keep your high performance utes, boys. My money's still waiting for the legendary Range Stormer. Now, that didn't immediately click with me, but I did a bit of desk research. 2004 Detroit show, Mark I Range Rover Sport. It was on 22s, scissor doors. It had the kind of 4.6 litre, pretty much standard engine, but just a searing orange paint scheme. So Nez is waiting for that one rather than a GR Hilux, and I think it'll be a long wait.
That feels like the kind of car where they had about $8.50 to do a concept and said, well, let's maybe change the hinges on the doors. I don't know.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen, we don't see them very often in the wild, but the two-door Range Rovers look ridiculous.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Do you mean like an early one, the first generation one?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, look, David Anderson says, crikey, and 10 points for use of the word crikey, by the way. I hope the economy can improve at the same rate as Hilux prices. Maybe they haven't noticed the recession. And this was because Byron had done an exercise where he looked at Toyota because they have such a broad spread of models going back such a long way, and then put it in terms of cost of living and adjusted the currency to current dollars. And while most Toyotas were more affordable as a factor of income and cost of living, etc., the utes had become more expensive, relatively speaking. Now, Andrew, 1974, said that he doesn't think that way of comparing historical pricing is fair. He's had Hiluxes for 25 plus years.
Yes.
A decade ago, a ute was 90% for work. You know, that 90% of those bought were for work. Now that number's probably 60 to 70% for work, and that they're more flexible. They can be tourers, towers, used for camping, fishing, hay haulers, all of that thing. So and you get your 5-year tax deduction, which is a nice sneaky one. But he's saying the nature of what is a ute has changed, such that it's not really apples with apples. You might say that cars have progressed as well, but utes have maybe changed more.
Andrew's 46 years old now, and he's seen family wagons become SUVs, and car-based utes become basically pickup trucks. So he knows.
In fact, I think that's James's first car behind him. So you've seen some changes too, Jason.
I have. Yeah. I'm as shaky as the tiller is now. Yeah. Now, we just had some general commentary, and our old mate Jim Danek wanted to correct the record. It was actually Birdie that was talking about an MG smorgasbord. So Birdie had said that MG was offering essentially a smorgasbord of models, whereas some other Chinese makers were just fairly focused on a soulless offering. And yeah, fair point. But I'd credited that to Jim. And then Birdie came back and said, yeah, I did. And that he's still salivating at the thought of a post-COVID $40 banquet C, which is great when you've got your multiple banquet choices. So good on you, Birdie. John Paul Cavillon says Yaris GR, 10K less than the original asking price, or at least it was. Is it a scare tactic to get pre-sales moving? What are your thoughts? I mean, Toyota's justification for this was to land the GR brand. Yeah, okay, Supra, it's technically a GR Supra, but there hadn't been much of a job on highlighting that GR bit. So with the Yaris, it was let's get some of these cars on the road. But is it just to get people into action and build the car park? What do you think, Chesto? Do you what's the tactic?
I have some strong views on this very topic because let me start by saying this: the GR Yaris is not a $50,000 car. It's not. It was a $39,000 car, and as of today, it's a $45,000 car. A car is worth what they sell it for. They may as well say it's a $150,000 car, but we'll give you $100,000 off. So it was 39. Right. It's now 45. Yes, they were trying to build the GR brand in Australia, but I also just feel like it's a little misleading of Toyota to say the first 1,000 you can have it for 39, the next 100 you can have it for 45, and then after that we don't know what the price is. We're talking about a multinational, gigantic corporation, the biggest car manufacturer in the world, and they don't know what the price is. They're going to decide after they sell the next 100. So it's a very careful strategy, but I do feel like it takes advantage of buyers, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, Richard, what do you think?
Look, it's going to be very difficult to try and persuade someone to part with that amount of money for a Toyota. I mean, if it had a BMW badge or an Audi badge or, probably even a Lexus badge on it, maybe that's what they should have done. They should have, if they wanted to sell cars for that $50,000 or, $40,000 and it's a Yaris-sized car, then put a Lexus badge on it. But
well, why
I
not
just
get
don't
a
think it's going
badge
to fly.
pack? You get a pack of Lexus badges with the car, and there you go. It's a Lexus Yaris.
I think a Lexus badge would make that car decidedly less cool, to be honest. I think it's better with a Toyota badge.
All right. Well, again, one of our old friends, Lofty Visions, says, great show again, guys. Thumbs up. Thank you. Is Australia getting the new Puma ST? Looks particularly interesting, especially as it's based on the bonkers Fiesta ST. And I've got to say, sadly, the answer is no. At this point, it's a no-go. Primarily because the car is manual only, and Ford Australia has said that 98% of sales in that smaller SUV segment are actually auto. Despite the fact that it's a performance-focused car, it's not worth their while. So for the time being, sadly, Lofty, it's a no. Now, Jim Danik says, so Lexus used the Mercedes strategy of adopting new technology in its flagship model, letting it let it filter down from there and into the broader market. And then he poses the really interesting question, where does that leave Genesis? Because technology, relatively speaking, is so affordable, it's pretty much the same tech in the Genesis as you'll find, in your Tucson.
Right.
So how do you differentiate on that level? I think it's a really interesting point.
That is so true. I was recently at the reveal of the new Tucson over at Hyundai's head office, and just parked about 3 or 4 cars over happened to be a GV80, the Genesis SUV. And so climbing out of the top spec Tucson into the GV80, it's not that big a difference, really. Like the materials in the Tucson are fantastic. The tech's all the same, massive screens and everything else. It does kind of shrink that gap between mainstream and premium.
It's exactly that comparison that Jim called out, a Tucson to Genesis GV80. So it's fascinating that you actually did that.
But it's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how they differentiate it moving forward.
Look, I mean, is this a case of would a Genesis buyer necessarily know what's also in a Hyundai? Because we talked about how there are Maserati parts that are shared between Jeep Grand Cherokees and that type of thing. You and I walk across the car park and we get into any Genesis, and it's like, oh, that's the screen out of the Tucson, and that's the air conditioning out of the Santa Fe. But are they going to know? I mean, they should know. I mean,
well, it's interesting, and Richard, as a Skoda owner, De Kook makes the point. Look at Skoda. They were for many years officially banned, by VW Group from acquiring the latest Volkswagen technology. They were always at least a generation behind. But now they have a production-ready EV SUV, which is the Enyaq.
Of
Skoda,
course.
which sounds like a computer from Control in Get Smart. But anyway, and he says that in his view, it's better looking than the VW ID4. And also the Superb looks so much sleeker than the Passat and Audi A4. And he was crediting Tung with making a choice on buying a Skoda. And there you are in a Skoda. That's one that has changed over time.
Yeah, look, we've got a Rapid Spaceback. That's our family car. And yeah, look, exactly 10 years ago, buying a Skoda was buying the previous generation, Volkswagen. But some things happen. They're no longer as ugly or, as polarizing as they used to be. And the technology is the same tech which has gone into the Volkswagen. So the price has gone up because that was one of the ways that Skoda could actually market it. It's a more affordable version. But these days, you're not saving too much money.
Well, I suppose it'll be up to them to tune the dials as to, all right, how much tech, what's the price, and reaching a sweet spot that still gives them some headroom up to Volkswagen and a market advantage. Yeah,
that's right.
But further to your point, Richard, I think there's plenty of Skoda buyers who don't know that it's a Volkswagen link. I don't.
Oh yeah.
Certainly in Australia, I don't think that Skoda is in a position where it'll ever be able to cannibalise Volkswagen sales, even if the cars were near identical. But I understand in Europe that might be a bigger challenge. But here it's, I say this delicately, but it's unique. It's a unique proposition for unique people, Richard, like yourself and Tom.
Well, look,
That's true. Well, we live in, sorry,
I was
our
just going to say, I
suburb.
think Skoda is the new Saab. I think
It is.
Skoda is the European brand that pragmatists want to own because it's not shouty. You know, it's not a look at me type brand, but it's quality and it has all the tech at a good price.
Absolutely.
But I reckon the Fabia wagon is just about the perfect inner west city car at the moment. I looked very closely at buying one a couple of years ago.
Well, talking of inner west, where you and I, and Chesto only lives a stone's throw up the road from where I do, there seems to be more Skodas per capita in our two suburbs than there are anywhere else.
Richard, I'd love to see you pick up a stone, chuck it out the window, and then Chesto cop it in the head on the other side. No, stop it.
Hang on, I'm looking for a stone.
Okay. Now, Ian Thomas very cheekily says, "What's that old Toyota Corolla doing parked in an EV charge station lot? Oh, the shame. Try a disability parking space next time." Now, this is Mal's car, and it's actually not an old Toyota Corolla. Well, it is, but it's a special one, and Mal calls it Jif. That's its nickname because it is the colour of a particular brand of cream cleanser, and it is his KE20 Corolla, which he's very proud of. So, Ian, be careful where you're treading.
It's actually, I would have called it the Pine Lime Splice because that's the colour. That's the colour.
Morgan Luke, we were touching on a few oddities in the off-road space. He had an Overlander panel van at a local museum he once worked at. Now, this was Land Rover drivetrain with a 308 Holden V8 in it under the body of I want to say HZ or HX Holden. What a combo. He says, lots of fun to drive. I remember it had a panel of about 25 switches in the ceiling. No idea what they did, but it was very spaceship-esque. So you had all these little toggle switches up the top there. And finally, Jason Manning just said, very funny. Now, I don't know whether that means he thought the show was very funny or he's being sarcastic. But anyway, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for your feedback.
We'll take it as a compliment.
We'll take it as a compliment, precisely. Now, we'll move on to the main topic of conversation, which is 2021 and what's heading our way. It's always exciting to think about what's coming over the horizon for the following year.
Zombies, I reckon.
We're now in October, so it's not that far away. And specifically in terms of SUVs, this was a story that caused a bit of interest during the week as a news piece on our website. So yeah, the SUV phenomenon, it's not slowing down anytime soon.
No.
And we've got quite a bunch of them, but we've decided to focus on half a dozen. Mm-hmm. And one of the most important ones in the first half of next year will be Toyota Kluger. Now, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, manufactured in the States. I think the Klugers that we get are from the US. A rebadged version is called Highlander in America. But it's we're going to have a hybrid Kluger as well for the first time in the model's history. But it's been a long time coming. April 2019, the car that we're going to see was first seeing the light of day. So I reckon customers and dealers and everybody will be really keen to see it arrive.
It's funny that, isn't it? I was actually at the New York show when that car when the Highlander version was revealed in April 2019. I can't believe it's still not here until somehow towards the middle of next year. It's an incredible delay.
Well, it also, just on a logistics standpoint, you think, all right, you've got to stop the factory producing the old ones at some point to ramp up your volume for the new one. How does all that work? But anyway, that's another issue, I suppose. But
the big news there, of course, is electrification. Toyota continues its hybrid push, and I have absolutely no doubt it'll be just as successful in the Kluger as it has been in the RAV4 and others. We are now a hybrid market.
Totally agree.
I think the Kluger as well. I mean, the one thing which the Kluger has got, which means it can't compete with CX-9 and stuff like that, is that V6 engine, which is so thirsty. If a hybrid version of that is going to make it ultra competitive, because at the moment that Turbo 4 and the CX-9 is just a good engine and so fuel efficient.
Bear in mind, Richard, in certain social circumstances, people have accused you of being fairly thirsty as well.
Oh, look, it's I'm coming out as a hybrid next year as well. So
I think it's a classic case, isn't it, where all those years ago, 20 or more years ago, the Prius arrived and everybody was kind of looking at it sideways and what's all that about? And now, so very strongly in the mainstream, hybrid has been embraced. And it's really paying dividends for Toyota, and this Kluger will be the next brick in that wall, I'd say.
Mate, I'll tell you, JC, there's a bloke at Toyota called Sean Hanley, who's their boss of sort of marketing and very senior man in the Australian organisation. He was very hugely involved in the launch of the Prius in Australia, and in fact, in trying to sell that to the media and to customers. And you cannot wipe the smile off his face now because he loves telling people, remember when you said it wouldn't work? Remember when you said Australians wouldn't like it? Look at us now.
Yes, and Sean Hanley loves calling a spade and shovel. He doesn't muck around. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean's like the uncle at the Christmas party who appears. Who never underestimate him, right? Because the way he talks makes him sound like just another knockabout bloke, but he's hugely intelligent bloke and knows what he's talking about. But yeah, Toyota has become the hybrid, company, and overnight success only takes 20 years or so.
That's right.
Prius came out in '97, I think it was.
Right.
And you see the other manufacturers trying to adopt hybrid quickly. And look, I love Hyundai as a brand, but you drive their hybrids compared to Toyotas, and you can feel the difference in terms of seamless transitions and stuff like that. It's light and day.
And you know what's interesting? That in the background, bubbling away, is hydrogen fuel cell with Mirai.
Yes.
And that's where Toyota intends Mirai to be the same as Prius in breaking ice on what they see as the primary future powertrain tech.
That's right, because everybody thinks hybrid's the new thing, right? And it is. Actually, it's not the new thing; it's the now thing.
Yeah.
Hydrogen is the next thing, and you're right. With the Mirai, Toyota's had that going in the background. I just wonder if there's more to Hyundai with their hydrogen systems than we know about.
I think just quietly, both of those boardrooms would be cheering one another. Like, great, we're both going down that path.
Yeah.
And they're probably benefiting one another in doing so.
Yeah.
Infrastructure is key there, and it's very expensive. So the more people involved, the better. Now, JC, do you mind if we jump from Kluger into Tucson? Is that going to ruin your list slightly?
That's perfect. Any order.
And I'll tell you why. Let me just jump in here for 1 second. I saw that car. Look, the design might be polarizing to some. It's certainly adventurous. I like it. There is a risk that the traditional Tucson buyer might find it slightly out there. But I do feel like they've dropped the ball in one critical point. And that is that internationally, there are hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions of that vehicle. No plan at the moment to launch them in Australia or no time frame for when we might get them. And I look at cars like the RAV4, like the Kluger. I think to myself, man, oh man, that's got to be a screaming missed opportunity, doesn't it?
Because there's a hybrid and plug-in hybrid version.
Internationally, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, it seems like a no-brainer.
So I know that Hyundai do want them, but it's my understanding that they just haven't been able to secure a time frame for getting them. So it does mean that essentially that car will launch without electrification, which in this day and age, and in fact next year when it does eventually launch, I don't know, that feels like a missed chance to me.
Yep.
Yeah, look, we know that Hyundai definitely wants it, and something's happened, and they can't get it. So it is a missed opportunity because the RAV will have been out almost 2 years by that point, with the hybrid, powertrain. So, but you can look. You'd know that their hands would be up for it. You'd know that they'd be on a waiting list, and we will get it, but it should be here.
But on that car for a moment, though, engine aside, gee, it is an impressive looking thing. I like the design of it, but perhaps more importantly, inside in the top spec models, it really shrinks the gap between mainstream and premium. Like the cabin materials are on point. The technology in the cabin is really impressive. If you've driven the existing Tucson, which is starting to feel a little long in the tooth now, the new one feels light years ahead of it.
Unreal.
It's
great.
taken ages, though. I feel like we've had that current Tucson forever.
Have we ever?
Well,
It's been soldiering on.
It's interesting, Chesto, that you talk about the shift towards premium. When you think about another arrival, two in fact, CX-5 and CX-9 Mazda. Mazda as a brand has been pushing kind of upscale, and they're both expected to arrive in the first half of 2021. And the focus is on in-cabin tech, specifically a bigger central display screen.
Again.
You'll get a rear AEB as opposed to just the forward AEB, and driver attention alert, even more safety. So Mazda's been packing in the safety and packing in the equipment, and these two are possibly the next steps in that progression.
Yeah, but JC, don't they desperately need an all-new CX-5? I mean, it's been a terrific car. It is still a great car. It's been a real doer for Mazda, but it has been shadowed now by the RAV4, which was an all-new model for Toyota. Mazda that is overdue now for an all-new model, and these constant nip and tucks before they eventually get to electrification are just kind of delaying the inevitable. We need a new one of that.
Yeah. At least change the tail lights on that CX-5 because look, well, they need to admit that they've put the wrong tailgates from tail lights from a CX-3 onto the CX-5. They're too tiny, and you're right. It'll be a long time before we get an electric or a hybrid CX-5 because they've told us they're not going down the route because Australia doesn't deserve one because we don't have the infrastructure to support it. It's all coal-fired power stations which are producing electricity.
Richard, if the tail lights offend you so much, couldn't you get down to Supercheap and get some trailer lights and kind of swap them out, do something with the nice digital ones that you can buy for your box truck?
Get some good seat covers down there as well, some
and
proper wheels.
The whole thing.
So just before we move off Mazda, just a little bit of intel on what's happening there. There was a great story written last year by an American publication called Automotive News who interviewed Mazda's CEO on just where the hell this new CX-5 and CX-9 is. So those cars will ride off a new version of the brand's large infrastructure or larger platform, and it was pushed back and delayed to allow for electrification. But unfortunately, there's been no sign yet of that actually transpiring. So I think the delay with an all-new one is the fact that they realise they need a hybrid or plug-in hybrid version. But again, no sign yet.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll see what we make of them, such as they are, when they arrive first half next year. And also a 2021 arrival is Mitsubishi Outlander. Now, that's obviously a mainstream and important offering for Mitsubishi. And it's been described as bigger, bolder, and better than before. Now, how else would you describe it? I suppose smaller, meeker, and worse than before.
It looks like a Citroen. Actually, it looks like a C5 Cactus or something like that with the LEDs up high and the headlights low.
Now, this is an all-new model, is it not?
Correct. And I think what you're getting is you'll get AEB across the range, a lot of advanced driver assist systems that may have been absent previously. So it's upping the ante on safety, and an improved plug-in hybrid option is a near certainty. That's what we're visualising anyway.
Mate, I just think that the words all new and Mitsubishi used in the same sentence are cause for celebration. You essentially need to cut their models open and count the rings to figure out how old they are. So
all
the
new.
fact that we've got an all new one coming is exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it will stay all new until about 2050, but the fact that it's coming now is good.
Longevity, not of the individual car, but of the model as an entity.
That's right. But you know what? Can I just say very briefly, I know I'm sort of rambling on here, so forgive me, but I think that's actually weirdly a real strength of Mitsubishi. You never hear stories about technology going haywire or mass recalls or problems. The fact that they have got older vehicles, older platforms, they're at the very least, you're buying something tried and tested, aren't you?
They've worked it out. Yes.
Well, it's true. It's one of the things which sort of, frustrates, us car journos is that the Mitsubishi ASX is so popular, but we know that it's also the oldest small SUV on the market. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe that's the recipe for success. Don't change it.
Yep.
It's not broke.
Exactly. If your ASX ain't broke.
Yeah.
Now, the next cab off the rank, is a car that's arrived to much fanfare. It's already here, but new versions being a plug-in hybrid and hybrid for the first quarter. And I think they're arriving at different times, but it's the Kia Sorento.
Yeah.
So Kia's large SUV, I want to say 7-seat. So it must be that the plug-in hybrid's first quarter and then the hybrid second half or the other way around. But Richard, you were mentioning earlier off air that they're important and much anticipated models.
Hugely. So new generation Sorento arrived last month, September. And look, pretty much the same engines that were in the previous one, even though the entire car is completely rebuilt, completely new, and it's bloody brilliant for the money. It's got a auto parking feature, which is out of this world. But they've kept the engines are still pretty old school. There's a 3.5 litre petrol V6, which is, for God's sake, it's 2020. And there's also a diesel, a 4-cylinder diesel. They're both pretty thirsty, and they're both pretty 1999 as far as engines are concerned. So this one of the main comments that we got in the video that we did was, when's the hybrid coming? When's the hybrid coming? So it's really good to know that it is coming next year. They desperately need it, and it's going to they're going to need it to match Kluger. And it's exactly what that car needs. The car's a modern car. It needs a modern powertrain and drivetrain. It's great.
It's great that you mention it, Richard, because I'm in one at the moment, and I'll talk about it next week. And you've driven it extensively, for the launch coverage that we've done. But the first thing that strikes you is it's such a handsome-looking SUV.
It's great.
They've done a great job on the way the thing looks inside and out, so composed and sophisticated for a car in that mass part of the market. It really strikes me.
$60,000, and you're getting a car which looks great, and it's got a good warranty. It's hard to beat, really.
And again, at the risk of harping on, you'd think the Mazda CX-9 would be looking over its shoulder too at an electrified Sorento coming.
It's true. Actually, Richard, that point you make, just to backtrack quickly, Outlander, of course, 10-year warranty now. So, 10-year, 200,000 kilometre warranty is pretty compelling in any part of the market, particularly in the SUV bit, I would argue.
That will make Kia go to 10 years, for sure. Maybe 11. They'll go up to 11.
My understanding is that they've been ready to pull that trigger for some time. Whoever comes up and tries to get
They've got the piece of paper. They'll just go to the drawer and they'll go, all right, here we go. We've got it.
Yeah, no, it's actually it's a big red lever in the office. They just pull down Frankenstein style.
There was a period last year where Hyundai were very strongly considering going to 7. They've decided not to in the end, but they were really looking carefully at going to 7. And you're 100% right, Kia. We're just sitting in the background going, well, the moment you do, we're pulling the lever, we'll be 10.
Yeah.
So will they go one more? Will they go one more year?
11 years.
To 11. Will they take it up to 11?
It's always said Australia's best new car warranty on the back of all
their vehicles,
hasn't it? So they'll have to go 11.
Right. They have to go all the way to 11.
That's a good
10
point.
years and 1 month.
All right. Well, the final one that we've chosen out of a list, the story that we got on the site is a dozen. So this is the last of our half dozen. Is the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Talk about cars that have been in gestation for some time. This one's been kicking around, but it's bound to be impressive. It is bound to be impressive. Chesto, what's your mail on it?
Well, I don't have a huge amount of mail on the new Checker, to be honest, other than the fact that we all as a nation and as a motoring world seem to have been waiting a very long time for it.
About a decade.
I, without having done any research on this, which is my best way to deliver facts, I'd suggest the Grand Cherokee is probably the oldest current gen SUV we've got running around Australia at the moment, isn't it?
It'd stand a good chance. If it's not, it'd be close. Yep.
And look, there is, when you talk Grand Cherokee, you almost can't not talk about the recalls that have surrounded that car. There's been certain controversies over the last decade, of course. So a brand new one for the brand will sort of erase all that history and allow them to start again. But the really amazing thing, the thing that staggers me about is the Grand Cherokee is their best-selling vehicle internationally. And all that money, all that investment on Jeep Renegades and new Cherokees and new Compasses, etc., I can't believe it's taken this long for a new Grand Cherokee. I would have thought they'd be pushing the button on this 5 years ago. But anyway,
it depends on do you play to your strength or try and build up your weaknesses? If you've got a strong performer, do you try and round out the portfolio or just focus on what's working well? Which strategy do you go with?
I think the best thing about that new Grand Cherokee is that it's going to have 7 seats. It's needed to have 7 seats. 5 or 7.
Yeah.
I think if you've got a large SUV these days and it doesn't have a third row, no matter how tiny it is, I think you're missing out. But I'm looking forward to it.
So it's going to push premium too.
Definitely.
Too true. And it's fourth quarter. So look, it's the best part of a year away, but it is a starter for 2021.
And it looks cool. I mean, if you look at the image on our website, I'm sure we'll have it up in the background. It looks cool.
What's the ad campaign for Jeep at the moment, Chester? Is it they've done the I bought a Jeep thing that's gone? They've brought it back.
As I understand it, they're now redoing the I bought a Jeep thing, which actually, to be honest with you, is actually shows self-awareness that's sometimes missing from car company marketing. They realized that, it's no secret. They did that campaign. They sold through the roof. Then they had a really tough few years where people were complaining and having issues with their cars. There weren't enough parts. They didn't have the dealership network set up to support it. And so they've kind of confronted that head on by saying they've actually brought it, I understand it, the same actors from that original campaign back to do it again.
Wow.
And they kind of turn to the camera and say, look, it's been a tough few years. We have there's been issues, and here's what the brand's sort of done to try and solve them. So, that works for some people, works for doesn't, but it doesn't work for others. But for me, it's a fairly brave campaign, I think.
Definitely.
All right, now, thank you. That will kind of wrap up our primary conversation, if you like. And we're going to move into cars in our garage.
Oh, yes.
And Richard, I'd like to kick it off with you, please. And you've been in a Ford product, and it's new to Australia. It's been around for a little while, but it is now new to Australia.
Yeah, look, it's been out for a couple of years in Europe land, but we have finally got a Ford Puma in Australia. It's a little SUV.
Awesome. I'm very interested in this.
It's okay. So here, look, this is I can talk about it. The embargo's lifted. The story's up on the website. Made a video as well. Look, I really wanted this to be good because Ford's got no SUVs left now. I mean, Endura's gone. They've still got Everest, but that's about it. And only about 15 people buy Everest a month. Well, it's more than that, but you know what I mean. It's based on a Ute, so it's not quite comfortable. So this is their. Well, they've got more SUVs coming. There's Broncos and all sorts of stuff, with exciting stuff which is coming. But for now, the Puma is their kind of their only real SUV that they've got on sale. It's tiny. It's about a Nissan Juke size. It's about 4.2 meters long. It's got a tiny engine. It's got a 1 liter 3-cylinder engine. It's turbocharged. It's petrol. It makes plenty of grunt. It's got a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. It's practical. It's got this thing in the boot called a mega box, and the mega box. I climbed into the mega box, and it's big enough to fit a whole me in the mega box, and I can close the boot floor down over me, and it's almost like a bed. And the mega box.
I thought the mega box would be something you pull out, put on your shoulder, slip the cassette in, get your roller skates on.
It's like that. Yeah. It's like that. The mega box has a plug in it, right? And you can fill it up with stuff. So you can fill it up with some ice cold cans of whatever your favorite beverage is. That type of
sports
stuff.
Drinks. Yeah.
Sports drinks. Under that is a mini Space Saver spare. It's tiny. It's only about that big. But practicality, I can sit behind my seating, my driving position. It is a small car. Cabin storage is good. All grades get a wireless charger. All grades get satellite navigation. They all get an 8-inch screen. The top of the range, there's 3 grades in the range. It starts with just the Puma, it's called. Then you go up to the ST line, which gets all the ST line parts, the same parts or the same body kit that you get on a Puma ST, which we're not getting. They'll look pretty much exactly the same. And then above that is the ST line V, and the V stands for Vignale. People that know their Ford stuff and their design stuff will know that Vignale was a designer, Italian designer, and Ford bought the rights to his work, but they've put his name on the car because in some Ford models, the Vignale is the top of the range, fancy premium luxury version, and it is a bit luxurious. There's chrome and there's leather and stuff like that. Good things are great practicality. Bad things are the engine and the transmission combination. Now, that engine, that 1 liter 3-cylinder, has won awards galore since like 2013 or whenever it came out.
Won an Emmy, a BAFTA.
It did. It won a Tony. It won a Razzie. It won gold at Seoul. The only problem is, in isolation, nothing wrong with it. But combine it with that transmission, the 7-speed dual clutch, and that combination brings out the worst in each other between the transmission and the engine. So you've got turbo lag, which exists in the 1 litre, but then you've got this dual clutch, which isn't anywhere near as competent or refined or smooth as a Volkswagen dual clutch. So you've got this delay in your turbo lag, and then you've got this jerky transmission from the dual clutch. Then you've got stop-start, idles, fuel-saving technology. Combine them all, and to drive in the city, it's a complete schmozzle. But to drive on the highway, you don't even notice the jerkiness. But at low speed in the traffic, going up King Street in Newtown, in Sydney at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like this.
Wow. Gold star for use of the word schmozzle too, Richard. We had that one in the podcast last week. Well done.
Apart from that, though, it's a great car. If they had that in a manual, it would be brilliant, because that 6-speed manual, which was in the Fiesta Sport years ago with that 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, was a hoot. So bring it out in a manual and it would be great. I'm very jealous of the countries that are getting a Puma ST, because that'll be great too.
Gee, that's a pretty significant flaw though, Richie. A car like that is going to spend all of it in the city and on the open road. So that's an issue.
It will, and I alluded to it, put about 250 Ks on the clock. We had all 3 grades. I drove it 200 Ks to Newcastle and back to Sydney. I did the daycare drop-offs in it. So on the highway, it's fine. And if you live in the suburbs and you spend a lot of time on motorways, you're going to love it. But if you live in the city and most of your driving is spent at under 25 Ks an hour, you're going to notice it. You will get used to it, but, it's not as smooth as, say, it's just a regular 6-speed auto and a 4-cylinder engine. It's not as smooth as that.
I've made that argument by myself before. People think that a dual clutch automatic is this futuristic solution to gearboxes, but actually in a lot of applications, an old torque converter is the way forward. A simple 6-speed.
And I hate to say this. I hate to say this too, but even in the city, a CVT, right, is more appropriate. The CVT and the CHR, right?
Richard, I think I can hear your parents calling you.
I'm coming, Mum.
You might need to leave the room. But at this stage, thank you for that, Richard. We'll move on to you, Chesto. And you've been driving a Hyundai that's in camouflage, but probably didn't need to be. But it's interesting because we were just talking about dual clutches, and fill us in.
It's transmission all the time today, my friends, because I was in the i30N with the dual clutch automatic. Now, it's hard to believe this, actually. I was a bit staggered myself, despite being on the launch. The i30N manual launched way back in 2017, which...
Did it really?
I drove it in 2017. Yeah, I can't believe it. Wow. Anyway, as far back as then, they were saying, look, we're working on an automatic. It's coming. And it has taken them some time. But the 8-speed has now finally arrived. In fact, will launch in Australia in the first half of next year. Now, a caveat here, and I made this point in the review too, a lot of people jump up and down at the thought of an automatic hot hatch. A manual is the only true way to drive it, the only true way to squeeze enjoyment out of it. But to be honest with you, I'm going to call bollocks to that, because I drove both manual and automatic around Wakefield Park, the circuit out there in Western Sydney. Sorry, not in Western Sydney, in Goulburn. And the automatic was faster for a start around the track, but also the way that the N brand has tuned that gearbox, it's really well set up for sport driving. Hey, like even if you just leave it in its absolute automatic settings, you don't touch anything else, it'll really cling onto gears. It'll shift down into a corner. It'll hold a lower gear as you burst out of an apex. I was getting it to chirp between second and third in pure automatic mode, meaning it was hanging on to second until the last possible moment before banging into third. So they've done a really great job of actually making that car feel super sporty with an automatic. And of course, it's even more fun when you take control yourself. Now, there are a couple of other changes. So we, of course, only get the performance pack cars, which means our engine is now more powerful too. So it's the same 2-litre turbo, but it's gone from 202 kilowatts to 206 kilowatts and 353 Newton meters to 392 Newton meters, which corresponds to a drop in the sprint to 100 kilometers an hour, which is now 5.9 seconds. So it's more powerful. Automatic is just as fun. And it really, honestly, it carries an end sort of legacy forward. I really enjoyed it. And given the choice, I'd take the auto.
I just would let you know, Chesto, that if you're going to call bollocks, I've already spoken to him this morning. He'll probably be at home, so you'll definitely get onto him.
Yeah, Peter Bollocks.
That's right. But I mean, just over 5 seconds is still a quick car. I mean, you split it really. It's there's nothing in it.
No, it's quick, and it is quick, and again, it's an automatic gearbox that does not feel like it's tuned for, for fuel economy or efficiency or anything else. It's tuned for fun, especially in that sort of end setting. So, yeah, no complaints here. As I said, I mean, I guess the greatest compliment I can pay it is if presented with both the manual or the automatic, my money would go into the automatic.
Wow. Amazing. All right.
Controversial.
That's fantastic. I want to just finish off this trio of cars in the garage. This week I've been in the Jeep Compass Trailhawk. So the Trailhawk denotes special off-highway ability, that it's been rated to cope with very tough and challenging terrain off-road.
Yeah, but has it really?
Well, Mal would have his say on this.
Yeah.
Had the actual trail rating. Richard, I know we've had this conversation. So we'll put that to Mel at some point. But it's an around $50,000 car, so it's not a small change kind of proposition.
Gee, that's plenty of money.
It is, isn't it? So it's a 2-litre turbo diesel, 125 kilowatts, 350 newton meters. Because it's a turbo diesel, you're getting all of those newton meters from about 1,750 RPM, so nice and low in the rev range. 9-speed auto, and of course it's 4-wheel drive. Now on the plus side, it's comfortable. It's surprisingly comfortable. Maybe it's because the Trailhawks typically ride on rims that are a little smaller than the standard ones. I'm not sure, but the upshot is that it rides really nicely. It stood out. Fuel economy, it's claimed at 5.1 litres per 100 for a combined cycle number. The actual I got was 9.2, which, it's well up on that. But actually, for a car of that size, under 10, I suppose, is passable. It also has a huge 2-panel sunroof. So your panoramic roof was delightful, especially in the early evening, and it is nice to be able to have that light coming in. There's the clever kind of passenger storage under the passenger seat. You can flip the squab forward and there's storage under there. Not that I tried it, but I'm told it actually compromises the comfort of the seat, which is a bit of a downside to that. But anyway, it's there. Look, on the negative side, it's what we'd call in Australia pretty gutless. It doesn't, there's really nobody home under the bonnet. You've got to coax it along. It's loud. It's surprisingly loud behind the wheel and outside the car. And on at least half a dozen occasions, I had the car sort of bogged down and almost come to a halt with the throttle pinned to the firewall.
What?
I was just, come on, let's go. And I found the technique that made it go was to almost like pump
Get out and push.
Get out and push. And it took off. So, look, that was surprising. Whether it was an issue with that car alone, I'm not sure. The interior design is complex. It's kind of all over the place. There's no particular theme, which is surprising from Jeep because they tend to do that pretty well. But I found different shapes, heights, things just happening all around the cabin. It wasn't very well unified. And just overall, I just didn't find it an inspiring, it's fairly uninspiring. And when you think for that kind of money, you can get a RAV4 Edge with panoramic sunroof. This car, it is not in the same race. The RAV4 has got it all over it. So look, if you're really determined to own a Jeep of some description, sure. But I think there are better options in the market would be the short story.
Did you find all the bits, all the little Easter eggs?
Yeah, I know you pointed several of them out to me, Richard. So that surprise was spoiled well and truly. So I didn't have the opportunity to be surprised and delighted.
Sorry, I've just dropped my phone. That's all right. I fell on my face. For people that don't know, Jeep delight in putting in the Jeep designers delight in putting these little things that people can find in. And in the case of the Compass, there's like a little plastic lizard that is on the windscreen, and there's like a little World War II Willys Jeep sort of thing on the tire, on the wheel rim. It's cool. I like finding them all.
Well, I mean, as we were saying, Richard, we were both having a look at that car, and the Jeep designers just seem to have some of the best design jobs in the world. They get out and do what the owners do to get into the zone and start to design the car around that particular lifestyle. And they do have fun with Easter eggs on, maps of the Moab Trail or, little lizards and things. It's all huge fun. But none of that can paper over the cracks, I think, that are possibly there in this vehicle.
But I think the best one is in the Ram TRX or T-Rex. The Easter egg there is a T-Rex eating a Velociraptor. So it's up against the F-150 Raptor, which I thought was pretty clever.
How good is that? That's great.
speaking of dinosaurs, the T-Rex of the car industry, and we're ready for MuskWatch.
Yes.
We said we wouldn't talk about his alarms, JC. So now you're calling him a T-Rex.
There you go. All right, so let's kick it off. First of all, surprise, surprise, Elon's an anti-vaxxer. He's
Is he?
What?
Yeah, totally. He's come out through the week.
What a dick.
So, Business Insider Australia has the story. He was in conversation with a journalist, Kara Swisher, this week in an episode of the podcast called Sway. And he said that he believed he and his kids weren't at risk of contracting the coronavirus and that he and his family weren't planning to get a COVID-19 vaccine when one becomes available. Now, this is on the back of him constantly having downplayed the severity of the coronavirus, particularly in its early stages. He said it was dumb and that it was a panic. And he was promoting hydroxychloroquine, a malaria drug, as a potential cure for it without any foundation at all. And he was also questioning the data around coronavirus deaths. Were there pre-existing conditions that caused death that were attributed to coronavirus? All of that blather. Look, there's no evidence that he or his family are any less susceptible to this highly contagious virus that's now killed more than 200,000 Americans, by the way, of all ages.
If Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his family can get coronavirus, anyone can.
Yeah. Has Chuck Norris had coronavirus?
No, the coronavirus has had Chuck Norris.
It's had Chuck Norris. Look, he also opposed the lockdowns because I think he was worried that his plants wouldn't be running. And he said that didn't serve the greater good. Now, his point of view is that there could have been a selective lockdown where people at risk could have been sectioned off and segmented from the broader populace. But at the same time, he did say in March that he thought there would be close to zero new cases by the end of April. And I'd just like to add that the cumulative total in the USA is now 7.3 million cases.
Wow.
Now, look, and he's not alone. There have been some surveys. So just to get semi-political about it for a minute, this was an Ipsos Mori poll, found that 33% of US respondents said they wouldn't get a vaccine as soon as one became available, citing concerns about side effects, which is kind of okay, I can get that. But 20% of those respondents said they were opposed to vaccines in general. And it's also worth noting that measles is making a decent comeback in the US at the moment. I would argue thanks in no small part to that attitude.
If I could just raise one vaguely controversial point for a
Oh
moment.
no, are you an anti-vaxxer as well, Chester?
I am unbelievable.
You've got the camo top on.
Yeah, no, I'm unbelievably pro-vaccine, and I am anti-vaxxers in their entirety. However, there is at least one small argument that says I'm not sure that I would be, if there was a queue of 100 people to get the COVID-19 vaccine, I'd like to be third. Just to see what happens.
Particularly the Russian one.
Yeah.
It seems to have been on a very speedy fast track.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, but back to more normal matters, and of course, the dear leader has been on the Twitters, and he's posted up a meme, and it's actually, I discovered, a character called Frank. He's a cameo character in SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, Frank is a fish, orange fish, he's sitting on a bench, and the words underneath say, "You'll ever be chillin', then think, damn, this is a real life."
I've seen that.
That one? Okay, damn, this is real life. So Demons came back and said, "When I'm high, yeah." And Rick,
Amazing.
Rick came out of the clouds and said, "So when can you ship my ass to Mars? And can I get one of those brain implant chips that controls my phone?" And then a guy called Little Truth, and his little hero...
Is it Little or is it Lil Truth?
Lil, Lil Truth.
Lil Truth.
And his little hero picture is a selfie of him with a mega six-pack. Whether it's him or someone else, I'm not sure, but that's the picture. And he says, "Yeah, without a vaccination, post-vaccination, and the sheep are all dead. I've lost faith in humanity. Hire me."
Oh God,
Oh, whoa.
it's a hell of a CV, isn't it?
It's a
Wow.
great pitch for a job. I hope he doesn't succeed at SpaceX. Let's put it that way.
I've been writing my cover letters all wrong.
Then there was another meme, which is more in the SpaceX realm, where it's 4 stars being joined by lines, in typical fashion, like the Big Dipper or
Constellation style. Yeah.
Correct. 4 stars joining in a close to straight line, and the meme says, "Ancient Greek astrologers be like, ah yes, a goat." Right. Now Elon Musk says centaur with a bow, obviously. So that was just hilarious. But some of the comebacks were, Ruji Bashai says, "I love how a world-renowned scientist," he's calling Elon Musk a world-renowned scientist, by the way, "posts a bunch of memes on his page. You're my favourite scientist, just above of Newton."
Just above.
Just above of Newton. Anyway,
Newton.
Stuart Anderson says, "Just a minor thing, but I'd like to point out that astronomy and astrology are not the same thing, and astrology hasn't even been around that long." So he was actually saying ancient Greek astrologers, for those that had picked that already. And Goolsey says, "Is the picture spinning for anyone else?" Which I thought was really good.
Brilliant.
Then we go to the share price. So it's $429.01. So it was 380 and change last week. So it has gone up. There had been a big fall after Battery Day, because people weren't impressed that everything that was talked about was down the track as opposed to an immediate benefit. But as often happens as a quarter draws to a close, this is according to the Motley Fool.
Copyright that. That's brilliant. Brilliant idea.
Investors in the electric vehicle manufacturer were anxious to find out whether the company will meet its delivery targets and keep growing. So we're, end of a quarter, are there enough cars? Is the sausage machine pumping out enough vehicles? So a leaked email, and there just always seems to be these very embarrassing leaked emails towards the end of the quarter, from CEO Elon Musk, suggested that the company would likely surpass the previous high of 112,000 vehicle deliveries that was in the fourth quarter of 2019. That was their previous record. So damn those leaked emails. They just
Can I make a second
inopportune time.
request? I'm banning the term 8 Richards berries out of the podcast. I'm also banning leaked email. Can we have to just refer to
leaked
the email purposely revealed.
Purposely revealed. So, the Motley
What about a leaked Richard Berry? Is that...
The Motley Fool saying ordinarily investors might forgive Tesla if it had failed to surpass its hoped for delivery numbers, but Tesla's stock price has been roaring so strongly, to unprecedented heights, that there's a huge expectation they will, because the shareholders want it to. But anyway, there you go. And with that, we have reached the finish line. So I want to say thank you, Chesto, and
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to our Director of First Impressions, Paradise Island caretaker and troublemaker troubleshooter, Mr. Pritchard, for his stellar technical prowess. Today, he's wearing a T-shirt saying, "I'm big down under," Pritchard tartan pants, and genuine signed Hulk Hogan wrestling boots.
Oh, my goodness.
What is the Pritchard tartan?
Well, there's a picture on screen for people watching on YouTube. It's been in the family, obviously, for centuries, and those pants are pretty handy, I must say. Anyway, please pass on the word about the podcast and let us know your thoughts by searching for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram using the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an Apple Podcast listener, please rate and review us, and remember, you can watch us on YouTube. But before we go, a mate of mine lives in Florida and told me he saw a bumper sticker saying, "I miss the Bronx." So he broke the car's window, stole the stereo, and left a note saying, "I hope this helps."
Ding! I think I'm about to drive through a tunnel, so
You're breaking up.
Oh, dear.
Thank you, everyone.